During the weekend, Bitcoin pumped above $69,000, so this is an insane move for Bitcoin, but there are also a lot of warning signals showing for Bitcoin, which I'm going to discuss with you in this video. Of course, it is beautiful to see Bitcoin pumping above the $69,000. Of course, it is beautiful to see Bitcoin pumping above the $69,000, but there is also a huge bearish divergence unfolding, but later about that in the video. I'm also going to show you some interesting data which for Bitcoin is coming into the market and which is beautiful to look at. I will also have a look at the two altcoins, Cardano and Vechain, but about that later in the video. So you want to watch this video all the way to the end, don't forget to slap up that like button and let's dive right into the charts. During the weekend I posted on my socials that I was thinking that Bitcoin would trade around the CME gap and that I was saying that Bitcoin should close the gap shortly after the weekend ends because that will be very bullish for Bitcoin. And if we then have a look at the chart, we can see Bitcoin traded around the CME gap of $68,417. But we can also see a huge pump above the $69,000 and we eventually reached the $69,500. So this is a beautiful pump to see, of course. But however, the CME gap was not closed after the weekend. So we could potentially see a throwback to this CME gap, close it, and from there we can just trade freely again. But for now we can expect a little bit of downside again because we have to close the CME gap. And if we then have a look at the 4-hour time frame, we can see a huge bearish divergence is unfolding. We can see higher highs are unfolding on the charts, but we can also see lower highs unfolding on the RSI indicator. And this means that we see some cooling off of the buying pressure, so we could expect a little bit of a more downside if this bearish divergence is going to play out. And that will look a little bit like this. But of course Bitcoin also can just start pumping and that would mean that we're going to invalidate the bearish divergence. But for now this bearish divergence is looming, so we have to be a little bit cautious that the buying pressure is coming back down and that we're also seeing a drop for the price of Bitcoin. And last week we had an insane inflow of the Bitcoin ETFs and we saw a total inflow of $21 billion already into the Bitcoin ETF since the start of the ETF. So this is insane, of course. And let's see if we can see this spike continuing to the top side. And eventually we want to come to this $25 billion mark. And that, of course, will be very bullish for Bitcoin. But last week we saw this spike to the top side just as we want to see for the Bitcoin ETFs. So let's see if we can continue this week and if we're going to see a bullish week as well. And looking at the daily chart with these horizontal levels that acted as resistance, we can see that Bitcoin is pumping through this big resistance level, and this resistance level was confluent with the previous high. So Bitcoin is now going to create a higher high, which is very bullish. And of course we are now seeing a little bit of a red candle, but that could also mean that we're going to retest this previous resistance as support. And from there we can just continue the bullish momentum to the top side. And this retest could also be confluent with the close of the CME gap around the $68,400. So if we're coming back to this level, close the gap, then we can just continue the bullish momentum to the top side. And the next big resistance will be around this level, and this will be confluent with these previous highs. And that will be confluent with the $71,500. So this could be a very interesting gain and this could all happen this week. So let's see if Bitcoin can pump above the $71,000 and come to this next big resistance. And if Bitcoin is going to break this resistance, then the way to the previous all-time high is open and that will be around the $73,000. And this could all happen in the coming weeks and it looks like October is really started. And if we look at this chart on the daily time frame for Bitcoin, we can see Bitcoin shifted from this downtrend into a huge uptrend and we are now seeing a higher high for Bitcoin unfolding after this high was getting gained. So we now could potentially also see a little bit of a throwback to make a new higher low, and from there we can create another higher high, and this will indicate that we're still in a huge bullish uptrend. So of course if we're going to see a retracement back, don't panic because we're just creating a higher low. And then you can also enter the market for Bitcoin if you want to. So if we're going to see a little bit of a retracement back to previous resistance to turn it into support, I am going to buy more Bitcoin. And this could also mean that we're going to see a little bit of a drop, and this could all be to the $63,000 or something like that. And if we're going to come back to this level, I will buy in more Bitcoin for the long term because I think we're just going to create a new higher low and that will still indicate that we're in a huge bullish uptrend. And looking at the Bitcoin monthly and quarterly returns, we can see that Q4 is now turning green and we're almost in the double digits. And October is now already almost for 8.5% up. So this is looking very bullish. And in the past, if we saw a huge green September, then we also saw a bullish Q4 with 3 consecutive bullish months for Bitcoin. So this year also September was green. So let's see if Q4 is going to have 3 consecutive months of bullish inflows. And of course, we want to see those double digits in October. So if Bitcoin is going to pump above the $70,000, we are going to see more than 10% of increasement in October for Bitcoin. And if we zoom out all the way to the monthly chart, we can see that every time we created a new all-time high, in the next cycle we had a little bit of price interaction with this previous all-time high. And now we're coming back to the same consolidation of the previous all-time high. And after we saw a little bit of a consolidation, then we saw the spike to the top side eventually. So we're now at the same level as the previous cycle. So let's see if we can see a huge exponential move to the top side for Bitcoin on this monthly chart. And of course, if we're going to see some similar move like this, then we could just pump to maybe into the 100 or $200,000 for Bitcoin. So this would be very insane. So I think this is where the Bitcoin bull market is starting, and this could eventually be the start of October. And let me know what your prediction is for Bitcoin in the coming bull cycle and what your Bitcoin top prediction is for the Bitcoin bull market. And the first interesting altcoin I want to have a look at is Cardano. Cardano is in this huge falling wedge formation to the downside on this daily time frame. And we can see multiple touch points on the top side as resistance and also on the lower side as support. And inside of this huge falling wedge formation, we can also see this huge resistance trend line that was unfolding. We saw multiple touch points here as resistance, but eventually we saw a break of this huge resistance area. But then we came to the top side of this falling wedge, which acted as huge resistance. We saw a retracement back to this previous resistance line to turn it into support, and we saw multiple retests here as support. And from this support area, we saw a bullish retest. So if you enter the market, you could already be up for more than 10%. That's insane, of course. But now we are coming closer to this huge resistance area on the top side of this falling wedge formation. But of course, we want to see a break of this formation, a retest of the resistance to turn it into support, and then we can aim for higher target. And this would be a very bullish move because we can then make a new higher high, and this could be the start of a huge uptrend for Cardano. And if we're going to see a bullish break out of this falling wedge formation, then the top side of the formation will be confluent with the breakout target of the falling wedge, and that will be around the 52 cents. So this could be an insane trade for Cardano to make. And if you're going to buy Cardano from the bullish retest, you could potentially make a 40% increase to the breakout target. So this could be an insane trade to make, of course. So let's see if Cardano can break out this week out of this falling wedge formation and see more bullish continuation to the top side. And the next interesting altcoin I want to have a look at is Vechain. We can see that Vechain was in this huge falling triangle to the downside with multiple touch points on the top side as resistance and also on the low side as support. And we can also see these huge horizontal levels were coming into play and they acted as resistance and support. But currently we are trading around this support area. But we already saw a bounce from the support level and we saw an increase for more than 12% already. So I was telling you about on my socials that I was buying at this huge green box of accumulation. So we could have been already been in a very beautiful trade. And now I'm waiting for Vechain to come back to this huge resistance area so you can take a little bit of profits after buying at this green box of accumulation. And from this green box to the red box, you could potentially make more than an increase of 21%. So this is insane, of course. So let's see what Vechain can do and if Vechain can come back to this huge resistance area and maybe even break it to the top side. And the breakout target of this huge falling triangle is the confluent with the top side of the formation, and that will be around this huge resistance area, which is at around the 5 cents. So from this point where we are now, it's still almost a 100% increase. So let's see if Vechain can even break to this huge resistance area on the lower side, and eventually we want to see more exponential moves for Vechain. And let me know in the comments if you think Vechain is going to see more bullish continuation to the top side and if you still hold Vechain in your portfolio. So please give a like if you find the video useful. Don't forget to follow me on my other socials, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.